And now, coming to you from the Pensado Media Center, powered by Westlake Pro.
Aerosmith, David Bowie, and a whole lot more know that our guest is truly a master of mastering. We've got the first winner in the Avid Izotope Happy New Year sweepstakes. It's NAMM week. Master Blaster has a brand new ITL. And what, pray tell, is a Pensado Village? We'll explain to you. You're at the place. It's Pensado's place.
Yay. As always, thanks for dropping by. Good to see you. You picked a good one, right, Herm?
Yeah, this is the time that you want to be doing kind of what we're getting ready to get doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Should we explain it to them?
Please. I want to know what that little thing is you're teasing.
Pensado Village.
I
know,
I've been
exactly.
doing improv.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody, it is great to see you. As he said, shout out to our incredible partners, the high-ranking Blackbird Academy, Westlake Pro, Avid, DTS, Lander, Recording Connection, the Fab Factory, and Studio 202 DC. Great to be with you and great to be sorted by you. Our first winner in the Avid Isotopes Happy New Year sweepstakes is in, and you should take your chance to win too. It's very simple. See all these prizes? Look at all those prizes right there. How cool is that? All you have to do is enter. There'll be weekly winners. How do you enter? Go to the URL right here, register, and you're in, and then we announce. We've got the first winner, huh?
We do.
Should I do a drum roll?
Please.
Okay, here we go. Come on, I don't have
The
rhythm.
first Avid winner is Carlos Rosales. Carlos Rosales.
Ah, you got two pronunciations, which means, that's Dave's never done that before. It's the first in Pensado's place. Congratulations, Carlos, and to the rest of you guys.
Carlos.
Absolutely.
Sorry about the butchering of your name.
No. Good stuff. Glad you entered. For the rest of you, enter right away. Avid Izotope, really good stuff. So winners next week. As soon as we finish this taping, Dave and I are gathering up the whole Pensado's team. We're heading to Anaheim for NAMM, and we hope to see you there.
Please come.
If you're coming, come see us at the Avid booth, which is in Hall A, booth 100. We'll be there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I would say get there 12:30 so you get a seat. We start at 1.
I'm staying till mid-April.
You're staying in mid-April? So I'll be doing the show in March and April by myself.
We can shoot it there.
Okay, cool. On Thursday, we have Jimmy Douglas and
Jimmy.
Nephew, and a special performance by an artist named Butterscotch. On Friday, the incomparable Butch Vig. This is a legendary dude.
Love
Great guy.
Yeah.
And shout out to his dad.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And on Saturday, Maroon 5. So you want to be there each day, Hall A, booth 100. As soon as you walk in the doors, we're there. Get there early, get a seat. There'll be giveaways, there'll be stuff going on. You'll be able to sign up for the Pensado Village. We'll tell you about that in a second. So you want to get there. It's coming up right away. And then on Saturday, you're invited to a birthday party. Not just any birthday party, our birthday party. Guess what it is? That's right. On Saturday, we are celebrating our 300th episode. What a milestone for us. We'll still be in Hall A. You'll come to the Audionamics Westlake Pro booth, which is 6590. You see it right here. We're going to do a show with Ted Greenberg and David Benson. These guys have done The Voice, Dancing with the Stars, live stuff with Carrie Underwood, Michael Jackson, and a whole lot more. And then it's party time. We'll have some beer, some cake. Dave and I have invited a bunch of our friends, pros and amateurs, and they're going to come. It's a huge milestone for us, and we want to share it with you guys who made it happen. So please come join us. Hall A, booth 6590, the Audionamics Westlake Pro booth. And now, something Dave and I have been waiting on for a long time. Whether you come to NAMM or you're watching on the show, here's an opportunity in the next month to sign up for Pensado Village, risk-free, so we can tell you all about it. So what is Pensado's Village? It's an idea Dave and I had about how to create an audio portal that we could get real value to you guys and make it worth your while. So what kind of stuff is at the Village? all kinds of good stuff. Discounts on your favorite gear month after month, exclusive access to content you can't get anyplace else. Dave has lined up a bunch of his famous friends to Skype with you, potentially review your mixes, have mentoring sessions, private confidential talks. We'll give you career advice. You can get merch. These hats are cool. These mugs are cool. We want to see this on the desk. You can get access to the awards show, to our live events, be it Mix Fest, Gear Expo, Cap Jam, VIP seating, backstage access, all kinds of things. We're going to put in some flyaway trips. We're going to put in a bunch of stuff month after month after month. So guys, here's the reason to sign up now. It's risk-free, no credit card necessary. Once you sign up, we're going to get a bunch of information to you on how this works moving forward. You got about a month to do that. So very simple. Go to pensadosvillage.com, pensadosvillage.com. There'll be a bunch of information there. So Dave, once these folks sign up, what do they get?
Man, they get the Pensado's Village t-shirt while they last, software from Audionamics, Izotope, and Stephen Slate.
Just for signing up.
Just for signing up.
Yeah, and we're planning a whole bunch of stuff, guys. Like we said, merch, access to things, trips, a bunch of stuff. This is a portal where we think we can get you great value, and in exchange for something that we value from you, and we can help build your audio opportunities and have some of our partners extend those opportunities to you. So we're real excited. Everybody's going to be signing up at NAMM. There's teams all over NAMM signing things up. So make sure if you're watching the show that you sign up by going to pensadosvillage.com and become a member of the Village. DP, you got a new ITL. What is it?
I do. It's called fazy verb with vocals, and the primary reason I did it was because I just like to say fazy verb.
I was going to ask if fazy verb was a mistake.
No.
So here's fazy verb.
Hey guys, I'm kind of excited to show this to you because it's got a funny name. I call this effect fazy verb. Don't know quite why. Just over the years, I've just always had a preset called, not a preset, but a group of plugins combined that I call fazy verb. And then the phase shifter that I was using went out of business and all that kind of stuff. This is Connor Phillips, and Alessandro Calema is the producer, and my friend Sundafu, it's his project. Let's jump right in. I'm gonna solo this vocal for you. She's a great singer. You'll be hearing some records from her soon, and I want you when you see these are effects throws. So these are my fazy verb effects throws. What you'll hear is a flangey kind of panty kind of. Check it out.
We ain't gonna tell nobody. We can be lucky. No, you love me. We ain't gonna tell nobody.
I just love that. So how do we put fazy verb together? Well, we're taking out a little of the mid-range to give it a little bit of a vibe, and then we're just using a generic delay, nothing special. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. And now here's what's making it come to life. I'm sending through Shimmer, Valhalla, all of Valhalla products. You should check them out. They're really good. And here's the fazy. This is the fazy verb. This is He, great company. And then here's the reverb. So now you know fazy verb, and you can make little special things with it, little special sections. I don't leave it on all the time. I like to do the automated throws. Okay, repeat after me. Fazy verb next week.
Jonathan Wyner is just an amazing audio talent. He is an icon in the Boston area. He's an amazing mastering guy. He's a highly sought after educator. I mean, it's really unfair. He's good looking. He's got good hair. He's really smart. He's an athlete, and he's really nice. If he just wasn't nice, we could just.
I really enjoyed this interview, by the way.
Jonathan is a beast. He has become a friend and somebody we highly admire. We think you'll enjoy the conversation with him. Yeah. It comes from Izotope's headquarters back in Cambridge in our Boston series from last week. Meet the incredible Jonathan Wyner. We are appropriately sitting in the mastering suite at one of our favorite places and your favorite places, who have great tools to make music, which is the headquarters of Izotope here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, surrounded by MIT and Harvard and all kinds of good stuff. With one of the all-time mastering greats. You're getting ready to meet him. This is the shop he works in, and he does a lot of other things that are just incredible. So please welcome to the desk, the one, the only, Jonathan Wyner.
Thank
Jonathan,
you very
how are
much.
you, man?
It's good
Welcome.
to be here.
Jonathan, what's up, buddy?
If we look a little funny, it's because we are coming out of a meat coma. We all were taken to dinner last night by the incredible team at Izotope, and we went to a thing and had the Pitmaster special.
It was so good.
And I think they're still bringing out food, so if you see a little tipsy and stuff.
I asked him to put the leftovers in the fridge. We're actually going to go back tonight and finish the meal.
They're all at my place now.
Yeah, there were bags and bags of them. Fire away, sir.
Jonathan, one of the things that intrigued me was your philosophy about the discipline of listening. And I think that mastering engineers do that better than anybody. But I think it could benefit everyone from an artist to a producer to the general public. Can you expand on that?
Well, I mean, even as a musician, you know, you have to be able to listen to the tracks you're playing to the other musicians that you're playing with, and interact and react with what they're doing. And I think anytime we're working as producers, audio engineers, mastering engineers, we are in a feedback loop between what we hear and something that we might do. So there's sort of a push and pull and interaction between the passive and the active. And I think you really have to train your ear.
Say that again. Push and pull between the passive and the active.
Yeah, that's sort of the passive, or the receptive state, which is taking in what you're hearing.
Okay.
And understanding, being
Trying
able
to listen.
Listening, and being able to hear well, and being able to understand what you hear and describe what you hear, and then very quickly turn that back around and say, have a judgment, have an assessment, you know, something that leads you to a decision about what are you going to do? Are you going to do anything? You know, what's the gesture that you want to do? Do you want to make something brighter? Do you want to add bass? Does it need to be compressed? If you're a musician, you know, what note are you going to play next? You know,
Please disagree with me. And this isn't a hard rule, but it seems like it's rare to find a mastering engineer that's a good mixer, and it's even rarer to find a good mixer who can master. Is it because mix engineers look at the trees and mastering engineers look at the forest, or is it just the gear's so different, or why can't we do both?
I think it's practice. I think they're both different disciplines. At the heart of it, when you get into the specialty, I think they're different disciplines. So I started out as a recording engineer and a mix engineer, and I was mixing all the time. I cannot mix as well now as then because I was not in mixing shape. And I think the way you listen, the things you listen for, and the things that you do are different. And
Did your background as a mixer help inform your career as a mastering?
I think it's impossible. I mean, with maybe very few exceptions, impossible to do a good job as a mastering engineer without understanding mixing. Without understanding what the concerns are of the mix engineer, what they've been through,
the language,
what they're doing, the
Well,
process.
let's be truthful, and the reciprocal is true. I think a good relationship with and a full knowledge of online mastering, or full relationship and knowledge of a real person is germane to the mixing process. If you don't understand the next step, you're going to create things that the next step can't handle and have the tools to take it to another level, particularly on the online world.
That's right.
You don't just send any piece of crap to that world and expect it to come back great.
Well, that's another
You send back
issue.
really
That's
good
right.
and it comes back better, you know?
Sure, definitely.
Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, and, you know, so the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people these days, whether out of necessity or interest or ambition, are trying to occupy both seats, to mix and to master. And I think even in that context, and it's a really hard thing to do. It's kind of like producing your own vocals. But it's especially hard if you're trying to do it all at once. So when I talk to people like this, I talk to them about trying to separate the two, understanding mixing for mixing and not trying to master while you're mixing, and understanding mastering and what it's supposed to bring to a fully formed idea of like what this thing that you've created is.
What's fascinating, and part of your background is you teach, and also your role at Izotope itself and what you do, because don't you oversee the education?
Yeah, my title is Education Director.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what, to underscore your point, the sheer number of requests I get for him, which I don't even think I tell you, that asking for mixing and mastering. Can Dave mix and master this? And I'm always sort of disemboweling that and saying, no, this is what we don't do. We'll give you recommendations over here. Dave will listen to a record and have a sense of where it needs to go. But there's a generation of people who don't separate it, and it's partially because they have tools and they think we have the same. I mean, we do have the same tools, but they see the disciplines as not separate, and I think they're missing something.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you look at music production, it is sort of a continuous, there's a continuum, and you know, mixing is here as mastering, and mastering is here, and how sort of far along you get with the mixing and at what point mastering takes over changes. But if I look at somebody like Andrew Sheps or Bob Clearmountain, you know, I remember working on some records by Clearmountain where I got them, I could not make them better.
Right.
And it wasn't that I wasn't performing mastering, but I wasn't going to change the audio as part of what I was doing because they were awesome. Now, was he thinking about mastering the record? No. He just made the greatest mix.
He just mixed the shit out of it.
Yeah,
That's what he did.
absolutely.
And you know where else I see that evolution in terms of the chain, which I've learned from Dave, is Dave will want to get mixes now that are a continuum of where the guy sort of left off producing it. And as he starts from a producing standpoint.
That's great
Right?
example.
So these chains start to connect, and then we have to be sort of more specific. And then you add different technology things. At dinner last night, which is one of the things I love that we get to do is what?
Eat free.
Well, not just eat free, have other people pay for it. and also such cool people. Last night was a really great hang.
That was wonderful.
But
Thanks.
one of the things that we get to do here, which oftentimes our audience is pretty good about, but we sometimes put ourselves in a vulnerable position, which is this. When there's emerging technologies in any particular discipline, I think Dave feels strongly, and I support this completely 100%, that we should be kind of the town criers about it. Hey, this is going on. Take a look. Our position is that we're all technologists and that you can't ignore technology or just be mad at it without trying to find out about it. But with the way we find out about technology, and mastering is a particularly hot place because of the companies that have come about that are doing online mastering and so forth. So we get a lot of comments about that kind of stuff. But one of the things that's fascinating for us, I don't even think our audience knows, is when we get approached by these companies, we go talk to you guys and say, what do you think? So I've done that. We've done that with Gavin Lurson back in LA. Get your opinion. Last night we talked about it. And what's amazing that our audience may or may not sort of be aware of is that 9 times out of 10, we get positive responses from you guys about the process evolving and why it's important to sort of accept the evolution. You can make a determination on the product, but you can't fight expand on that. Am I getting close to?
Yeah, I think every new technological development that comes along has the potential to help us, to help make our work better. It has a place in our work and in our world. And I think it's important to understand it and try to tease out where it lives and where it fits and where it works for us and where it doesn't. I mean, I think a lot of these sort of new assistive tools, a lot of them provide sort of interesting feedback to the user and help us make better decisions. And right now, for me, that's the best sort of assistive technology, is in metering or visualizations or something like that. The place where it's hardest, and I think we're still working really hard to make it work, is where there's an artistic context and there's a decision to be made, and it has to be taken in the context of the artistry.
Yes.
So, I often talk about, presets is a really lightweight example of technology, right, and assistive technology. And if you see a preset that says reggae, for instance, well, that's fine. I mean, we understand something about that music, but how can you, what reggae tune are you talking about? What does the mix sound like? What is the bass playing the fundamental, or is it shaped in such a way that you're hearing the first harmonic better, and so on? So there's that artistic context that I think it's hard to sort of figure out how to describe that and then offer processing that's intelligent about the artistry. But the technology can do a lot of other things that's really awesome.
And I think, we have a sponsor who does that, and we made the decision based on a lot about the people, and you had actually used the process, and we had researched with guys like yourself, and what we found is, and Dave really describes it properly, and oftentimes we use Dave to take apart something, not just we're not openly just promoting something. We're saying here's where it can make sense. It doesn't make sense every place. You can learn from it. And by the way, all of us should be thinking about artificial intelligence. It's coming at you whether you like it or not. It's in your phone. It's in your everyday work. It's there. So to act like it's not going to be there in music is a mistake.
Yeah.
But what I love is that when we get that kind of information from experts like yourself, and then you learn the context to look into something.
Exactly.
And that this isn't a marriage necessarily. This is like, oh, she does that well. And, so we'll get to know that way.
I think we should do a show on how to adapt and adopt to technology, because technology.
It's a good call, Dave.
Technology
call.
isn't about replacing something.
Right.
It's about a different form of something. And so if your expectations are to have exactly this piece of software replace this person, never going to happen. But if you look at technology as good for the masses and having elements that are going to make your life easier and better, then and dial your expectations back to a realistic view of technology. You embrace it, you love it, and last night we made a joke about a VCR still flashing 12 o'clock, and because when you fight technology, you start getting behind, and it's harder to catch up than it is to follow along. And so expectations are the biggest skill to have in terms of adopting new technology, because
We should do that
I love
show.
it. I've always thrived on it, and I don't want to make this show about me, but I could go to my console and EQ a kick drum in like 30 seconds, but I had a Turtle Beach software that allowed me to download out of my Akai sampler, EQ it digitally, and put it back in, and that process took 6 hours. But I did it every day because I just loved it. And we'd go to lunch and we'd come back and see if it was baked yet.
Right.
And I think that enthusiasm, and I'm not bragging on myself, I don't know why I liked it, but I did. I think that expectation and anticipation of something cool and new could possibly happen and enhance and take you in areas where you could never go before is what technology does best.
Well,
it keeps you engaged and excited about the future.
Well, what's interesting about Jonathan and just, the sheer weight of his experience and the intellect is when you, like all of us have our chips in on education. And so you have a focus group literally that you talk to every day about how they're experiencing things and how they're accepting things and where the friction points are and what's disruptive and all that kind of stuff. So what I love about, even when people get angry a little bit with us about why are we being involved with stuff, is I love the passion because they care about it. So that's a good thing. I think if what Dave talked about and what you're talking about, then if we can sort of explain context, there would be no Pensado's Place if we were just traditionalists. Why would we think we could go do a show that would be seeing a lot of people? Why would Dave and I? We've never done that before. But you have to sort of step out and take the thing. So we get to go to experts like yourselves and actually lead us in our thought process on how to think about something, then hopefully disseminate that out. As somebody who does education, and we are clearly, I'm switching gears here, we are clearly fanboys of Izotope. Dave and I are sort of unabashed about certain people like we love and who have been with us, and obviously. And Izotope from the beginning represents to us, and I want to see if you agree with this, this mixture of leading cutting edge technology, but a culture of people who are musical and musicians, who love and are passionate about what they do, and still understand in a smaller percentage way that some of this should be about fun and show business and the opportunity to do this. Am I describing it correctly? Give me your take.
I mean, this actually does tie in a little bit to the theme of technology, because in its best version, it should unlock creativity. You should be able to get to that place where you're making creative decisions more quickly, right? So,
Yes.
So if you have to spend your whole time inside your toolbox, you never figure out, you never get to use the hammer.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
That's right.
So we think very hard about you know, that the UI, you know, the way people interact with the tools, to let them sort of have that sort of top layer of, I want to do a thing so that I can feel good or feel better or be happy or hear what I want to hear. And then there's a whole bunch of options and a whole bunch of technology that you can bring to bear if you want to finesse it.
Yeah.
You know, and spend more time inside the toolbox.
Yeah. And was that the founder's perspective from the beginning? It just infuses everything you guys do?
Yes, yes, it's a belief in both those two things, is unlocking creativity, but also giving users all of the power and all of the possibilities, and building that all into the tools.
I tell you guys, because, you know, when we have our live events and, you know, we give away Izotope stuff, there's always such a big reaction. As you know, we're here taping this in their headquarters, and the couple days that we've spent with them, you can see why the product is so good. You can get it from the sense of the people. You can see I mean, they're treating us wonderfully, but beyond that, there's an energy about this that you want to be around when you're doing creative things.
The first thing I do when I get a new piece of equipment or a piece of gear is I go to the website and look at the about, and I like to like the people that make it, and then when I use it, the experience is more fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Izotope is one of those companies on steroids that I love because they don't try to make shit that looks like other shit I already have. and they're very
They make
proud.
their own shit.
They don't try to McGurk you. They try to not be limited by the past. It's hard to look at the future if you're always looking at backwards at the past. I've got a question for you. I'm gonna name some names for you, and I want you to tell me what was the common mastering thread process for these names, and what were the differences. Here we go. Aerosmith, Pink Floyd, London Symphony, Bowie, Nirvana. How could a person do those, and what was the thread that permeated that process, and what was the differences?
Well,
if that's not a question you can possibly answer,
no,
I'll accept
it definitely
that.
is. It's actually one of my favorite questions. And it's one of my favorite things
Are you telling me you get this often, that I'm not unique with my questions?
No, you're the first person. I ask myself all the time,
good.
and I've just been waiting for you to come along.
Good.
That's completely different when you do it.
That's the proper
totally
answer.
Different.
We're on a good roll.
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is, I mean, it's one of the things I love about mastering is that you have to be versatile in terms of genre. And I grew up in a time and a place in a household with musical influences that span the musical universe. And so the way you can do that is by understanding what is at the heart of a musical form of expression. You know, when you see a dynamic marking on a sheet of paper on a classical musician's music stand, it means one thing, right? If you think about a pop mix and where the vocal sits in relation to the guitars and the drums, everything, you know, the values around dynamics, around balance are different. But here's the thing. Dynamics and balance and tone, those are universal concepts. So if you can understand the music and what's important to it and what you're trying to communicate and figure that out, now you know, am I going to use a compressor in this way or that way? Does it have a place in my classical recording or not? Well, let's think about, sometimes it absolutely does. It's totally possible to make a classical recording, especially an acoustic recording, that has too much dynamic range, where the consumer can't actually
Even
consume
in a digital world,
especially in a digital world.
Yeah,
Back in the days of tape, as you know, I mean, I started out working on 4-track tape machines in the
limitations kept you in
mid-70s.
it. Yeah.
Well, there's the track limitation, but the dynamic range limitation. If the music got too soft, the noise became a problem.
Right.
So you had to figure out some way to keep the dynamic range in a place where the listener was closer to the music and further from the noise.
Yeah.
Right? So but in digital, we don't have the same kind of noise considerations that we have to deal with. So now, if you're not sort of guided to that result by the noise, then you have to pay attention to the music.
Yeah.
So I think it's easier in some ways to do that. I'm not suggesting that you go out and compress every classical, record that you work on. But anyway, so, to sort of take it back to the question, I think that there's, it's really interesting to me to think about how a heavy metal record, especially maybe older school metal, is like classical music in terms of dynamic range, and they're related. I mean, the way the peak rises above the average level.
Wow, I never thought of that, but
it's
I can hear
amazing.
You can hear it in your head because
Excuse me.
distortion is a form of compression. saturation is compression. Yeah, I get it. That's pretty cool.
So for me, music is like a universal language, and then there are these dialects within them.
Oh, what a great way to put it.
That's pretty cool. So, if you can help me out, I love using several monitors, brands and sizes when I'm mixing. And I have my favorites, my Ausbergers, my Amphions, my Reftones, and you do the same thing. I never thought about why. Can you explain why that is a good way to work? And can you also explain how you use headphones? Because you master on headphones sometimes, so double question.
That's right, and here I'm going to be a little bit contrary. I think using multiple monitors is a great way to get a different perspective on balance and how different elements are coming through.
Different
in
levels
a mix.
too.
And it's awesome for mixing. It's not a good idea for mastering.
Oh, it's not.
It's not a good idea. I tend to rely, and I'm lucky because I've got a great room, and I know the room and I know the monitors.
Why do mastering engineers always have speakers I've never seen before?
So it makes us seem smart. That's all. It makes us seem
Why can't
special.
you guys use something I know?
We're compensating. You know?
It's a penis thing.
Oh, okay.
It's like a Porsche.
Well, those things
I
are
didn't just say
impressive
that. I
looking.
did not just, but anyway, so
I went
really
farther.
need, you really need a box with like 18 speakers in it?
He was going to step off the cliff, and I just went and dove off of it for him. So.
well, no, actually, you
That's
did
a
it, so I didn't
surprise.
have to.
Absolutely.
That's a
Sacrifice
surprise
for
to me because now that I think about it, all my favorite mastering engineers tend to use one set of speakers.
Yes,
you're gonna
and that's
mention something
because
about-
you need to be calibrated to what a record sounds like, and that
Your
involves
brain.
everything from how loud it is to the tone of it to that's right. And if you start changing anything
It's gonna
about your
change your
listening
information.
environment, you don't have a point of reference
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly say.
So in some ways, we're better than you at this process of creating.
No, that's a leap.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that. I did want to just sort of call out the headphone thing, just
Okay.
because, for a lot of folks don't have a room like this.
Yeah.
A lot of folks don't have a room like what you get to work in
Yes,
hopefully
true.
all the time.
True.
And so headphones can be a great way of getting a reality check about the bass, maybe a different perspective on imaging. But for me, I do use headphones every so often for just a quick check. But then I put them away because the nature of listening on headphones is so
Is
very
there a
different.
brand you can recommend?
Headphones?
A model?
Well, sure.
Don't do that if you don't want to, because
No,
that's
there
a hard
are two.
question.
My go-to has been the Sennheiser HD600s.
Okay.
Open back, really natural. I love them, and I know them. I was just in Tokyo and listened to the Oppo PM1s.
I don't know those.
No, well, you don't want to know about them because they're too expensive, but oh my gosh.
I got
They're
a little money.
incredible.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
fantastic. So anyway, but the Sennheisers are great. Yep.
So
Yep.
one of the things we noticed, going to go back to Izotope really quickly, is we had such an overt reaction to Neutron. In a really, really amazing and positive way. Is that the company's experience? Give us the Neutron picture.
Well, the response has been fantastic. And I think what's been really gratifying about it is it seems like we were able, and by we, I'm generously usurping all of the intelligence and good work of like everybody else here. So kudos to like everybody. Able to understand a pain point for people and figure out a way to leverage and take this technology and help people do better, to understand how to do a dance with this pain point. And it's not rocket science in the sense that, you understand what you're doing when you're mixing is you're trying to balance two things together, right? So you can hear them in proper proportion. And it turns out that's really, really hard for people to do.
Yeah.
You can get the balance right, and then you sort of get to the point where you want to improve things, and things can go all to hell. Anyway, so the visualization is one of the amazing things about that tool, where people can actually get instant visual feedback to confirm what they're hearing and help lead them to some decisions. So people are just kind of blown away. And the responses, and like Andrew Sheps, for instance, when he weighed in, he was like, "Holy shit!" And that was basically his review.
That caught my attention. That caught my
Because
attention.
when Shepsy does that,
So it's
you
been
sit
really
up.
gratifying. Of course, we were all, we'd done a lot of work on this, and we were all biting our nails, hoping. We tried to understand how it was going to be received. We have a robust beta group. We try to put it in front of people, who know. And
reaction was
been
from our
fantastic.
end. I remember we put it in front of Dave, and Dave, Dave will talk almost every night, and he'll go. And now we speak shorthand because we've been around. And he was like,
yeah.
when Dave sort of does this about a tool, and I can hear that over the phone.
Yeah.
I can hear him going.
You hear that?
Yeah, and then we go give some away, or we go share it with folks, which you guys are really good with us about.
Well, next for me is figuring out how to abuse it. So I put 3 in a row,
Oh,
and
nice.
that was really cool.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's one of the great things is, you build something and you sort of get a sense of how people might use it, and then you find out what they do with it.
Yeah.
And that's really fun.
Yeah, it's like your reggae preset. I like to use vocal presets on acoustic guitar sometimes, and I'll use acoustic
Awesome.
guitar presets on vocals sometimes, particularly background vocals. In fact, there's I digress. The EDM world uses Tony Maserati's GTI guitar plug-in on pads and synths because it's just
Nice.
amazing. And so,
Right.
anyway, that's fun.
It sort of
to do.
goes back to this idea about it being a universal language.
Let me ask you something.
And the dialects in there.
Me
that-
personally, I think the loudness war ended a few years back. I don't think it's relevant anymore. I think that rock and roll is always meant to be loud as possible. If you don't leave with your ears ringing, it's not a good concert. Volume is something.
You just lost me, man.
Volume is something that has always been an effect. In fact, if you use a
That's
mastering
true.
example, Bernie Grundman got famous because he made the loudest records. Then Future Disc comes along, they make louder records. They got famous and rich. Trailers for movies started getting so loud they had to pass laws against it.
That's right.
We love loudness. Humans love loudness. It's biological. You're not going to change that. You'll never, ever, ever change that. There's no such thing as loudness wars. The only thing there is doing loud poorly.
Thank you.
And
There's good and loud, and
it
there's
doesn't
not
have to be bad loud. It can be good loud. Give me some pointers on that from a mastering standpoint.
brother.
Because limiting has become a bad thing, but without limiting, there's no mastering. And so the problem is that we don't use limiters as efficiently and quite as
A lot of people don't.
skillfully as you guys do.
Well, a lot of people don't understand what the artifact of a limiter is, first of all.
School me.
Well, there's harmonic distortion that gets added. And if you, it was one of the demos I love to do. I take a 100 hertz sine tone, I drop the threshold of a limiter, put a visualization on the back end of it, and the minute the limiter touches it, you get an accumulation of distortion. And it's unavoidable.
What does the waveform look like?
It's harmonics. But the harmonics
So it
are not
gets fuzzy
necessarily
looking.
musical harmonics. It's a byproduct of the sample rate and the input frequency.
And Nyquist.
Well, but so if the sample rate changes, the distortion changes, and it's just not pretty. You lose low end and you add top end. I mean, you add harmonics and distortion. So
And by the way, harmonics and distortion are not necessarily always bad.
they're not always bad, but if you gave me an awesome mix, I probably want to minimize the amount of distortion that's taking
Absolutely,
place.
'cause
So
that's
I got
my
to
job.
strategize. That's your job. Exact. Thank you very much. Right. That's perfect. So,
Yeah.
but back to the whole loudness piece. So I'm going to say, just if I may, a quick PSA.
Absolutely.
I've done 2 episodes of a webcast from Izotope about loudness, and one of them was with a.
I've seen them, and they're both excellent.
The
Changed my life.
I did one. Wow. I did one with this guy named Rob Taylor, who's a doctoral candidate at the University of Newcastle in Australia, and he is doing some really great work in helping us understand what loudness is, where it matters, where it doesn't matter, and how it plays out in our world. And the things that he came up with, some of which absolutely support what you're saying, is that if something is 10 dB louder, from one level to another, we have a different biological response. You can measure that. So it's not just about some idea of preference, it's actually a physical state. However, right, the thing is, we've lost control of the volume control on a playback system, because you can make something louder so your ears bleed if you want to, right? So that's sort of thing number one. Thing number two, and this is really kind of mind-blowing, is in his research, surprisingly, he's discovered that the untrained listener, the consumers, the people who we make music for, they cannot hear the difference of 2 or 3 dB. They can't hear it, and they don't make decisions about what music they like based on it.
That makes sense, because a dB by definition is the smallest increment that the human ear can hear.
So it's fascinating, because we spend all of our time pushing level to get that extra 2 or 3 dB into a master. Well, guess what? The consumer isn't caring about that, right? Who cares about it? And you talked about losing work because you're not making records. We care about it.
I didn't do it. A friend of mine.
Well, you were talking about this last night, right?
A friend of mine lost a $200,000 gig because his rough wasn't as loud as a world-famous engineer's rough.
So there you go. So when we do that, we're doing it for the next gig. We're doing it for the sort of first impression back to the artist. And that relationship is the one that we're taking care of. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's wrong necessarily, but it's important to understand that, because then it gives us some latitude to say, look, I know you want it to be a dB louder, but the people aren't going to buy it because of that. But
I never worry about a dB.
But let's keep it here, because this is where it's great.
And those distinctions become important in decision making. I think both in how you teach people, so they can learn that context. It's I don't think you were here for our tech talk, but we were. We have a thing I have a thing, I guess, about the head down society, and it's just that people are in their phones all the time. And the whole point to have it up is so that you can get context and perspective and understand that nuance and distinction become important just in your life, and certainly in creativity.
Right.
You know, just the sheer nature of the people who could just get bowled over by a car or snatched just because they're walking around completely unaware, let alone as a safety thing. But you know, so I'm extending the metaphor. I mean, it's just crazy. You walk to a college campus, and it's just a bunch of drones just kind of walking around. And I don't mean it as a negative. There's compelling stuff in here. But there's also compelling stuff when you raise your head up and have a conversation. So when I hear guys like you and Dave, and the stuff that we do, sort of pointing out the fact that understanding that nuance, getting a sense of that distinction can make the difference between that record or that piece of digital material becoming really special or just ordinary, has a lot to do with you understanding that bringing your humanity to it is important.
That's right.
The Boston scene, you know it, you've been around it. Describe it.
It's the best.
Yeah. What makes it the best?
It's the broadest. First of all, you know, we've got something like 400,000 students.
Yeah.
Which is, they're a huge ready-made audience. They're also a tough audience.
Yes.
You know, it's tough to get them to pay attention to something.
Yes.
So you have to work really, really hard to get people's attention around here. But we've got, you know, which means that, you know, when you get attention, you rise, you've got something going on.
Yeah.
But we've also got, like, the best of everything. We've got, you know, a robust jazz scene, or a couple of them, not just around Berkeley, but also around the metropolitan area. We've got, you know, an incredible singer-songwriter scene, and there's a history that goes back through Club Passim and the sort of roots of the singer-songwriter, the folk tradition.
Yep.
We've got, you know, MIT and sort of, you know, high-tech music. We've got this incredible sort of Babylon of crossroads at Berkeley, the Gardens of Babylon of music. It's just kind of everything, from Aerosmith to the Boston Symphony, and all of these.
Brown.
What's that?
Bobby Brown.
Bobby Brown, Maurice Starr. You know, I mean,
that's right.
You know, so it's amazing. It's one of the reasons that I love being here as a mastering engineer, because the folks in the Gamelan Orchestra don't necessarily see what Letters to Cleo was doing in the 1990s.
Right.
Right, but I get to see it because they all come across my desk. So back to what you were saying about, you know, cross-genre. It's awesome, and this is like the best place to be. I love it.
We felt that when we came into town, and you know, by the virtue of the show, whether we go some places digitally or we actually go physically, where we go to Nashville or Austin or Montreal or wherever it is, you get a sort of feel when you get in. You get a feel from the people, you get a feel from the energy of the town. And Boston feels super. One of the reasons we wanted to come is we just kept talking to folks like yourself and Dave Malikapour at Osberger and you know, Carl Beatty over at Berkeley and all the folks. And we would see a lot of our peers come here and speak and teach and so on and so forth. And we just had to do it. It felt like not only the combination of the college scene and the music scene, the other kinds of stuff, it also feels to us like the East Coast center sort of for Silicon Valley.
Yep. Well, there's a history too around music technology here, going all the way back to Atlantic Research and Lexicon and Bose and et cetera, and now between Izotope and Mark of the Unicorn and Cakewalk and Harmonics and et cetera, and there's new stuff all the time.
Everywhere.
I also want to say one of the things that's cool about the energy here is that people are trying to figure out what's next, and that's also for the music business and maybe for the record business. And so there's a lot of energy around trying to figure things out around musicians' rights. We have seminars with Harvard, at the law school about intellectual property concerns that intersect very much with what we do. So it really is a very, very rich place to be.
That is really fabulous.
I was just sitting here thinking, I was looking at this room. Mastering engineers understand the importance of the room that you're in, which is actually more important than the speakers that you use. And I've never met a mastering engineer that didn't know a lot about room treatment. And I'm wondering, as you teach at Berkeley, do you also teach courses in room treatment for regular engineers, not mastering engineers?
Oh, yeah.
Because
well, one of the
I feel cheated. That's not something I taught myself and could easily learn. And I was late to that party. Now I'm in a perfect room. But boy, if I had to treat a room 10 years ago, I couldn't do it.
Well, look,
I think that's more important than anything else.
It is. I mean, as I think you pointed out at dinner last night, or some version of this, if you don't have a good room, it doesn't matter how good the gear is. And then, I think you're also talking about the skill of the engineer, but but if you have a great room, then you know what to do or what not to do.
It's like speaking the same language as your speakers. When you have to interpret it,
gotta
so
understand
tough.
it, and you have to understand what you're hearing in order to do the correct thing, whatever correct means in this case. So in one of the foundational courses at Berkeley that I teach, it's called critical listening. It's one of the first semester courses for students, and the first 2 weeks are spent on just thinking about room behavior, and they analyze their own rooms and think about what they're hearing and attach, some calculations that they do and attach it to what they hear, and we help them make some small improvements. They're not going to be able to do everything, but it sets them on the way to understanding that there's that fundamental relationship between their work and the environment that they're in.
Are the rooms at Berkeley treated?
Oh yeah, we just built.
No, I mean the dorm rooms. That'd be funny if your dorm rooms.
No, we try to put them in the
full.
worst possible case scenario and say, "Good luck, kid."
Absolutely, hang in there. Welcome to the real world. Welcome to the music business.
Yeah, here's some oral eggs. Have fun.
Yeah. No, we have not spent money. Berkeley is a school of 5,000 students.
I was teasing.
I know. But just to sort of give it some reality, there's 300 students in production, and then 4,700 making awesome music that we get to record.
Oh, very cool.
I think if I was starting my career today and I was a teenager, I can't predict what I would do, but Herb and I think I could speak for her for this. I think I'm fascinated by the world of forensics as it relates to audio. I don't know why. I think, Herb, you're a little bit that way too, aren't you? How does that relate as a possible career arc today? And what's your experience with it, if you've had any?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, we make this thing called Izotope RX, which I think has become kind of the standard for restoration, noise reduction. It gets used in the context of everything from modern productions, taking out clicks and pops and things like that.
I use it.
Yep.
Can retune, you can sample rate convert, blah, blah, blah. And those tools can also be used to take old recordings and reveal what's there, so you can hear it better. And as you get better and better at using these tools, at least in my experience, inevitably somebody hears about the fact that you know how to do this, and somebody calls and they say, "Hey, I'm attorney John Smith, and we took a deposition in a courtroom." And of course, in courtrooms, they set the microphone up at that end of the table right by the open window, and then all the people who are speaking are at the other end of this 12-foot long table. You sort of get the scene, and they're like, "We couldn't hear whether the person said that they did it or they didn't do it. Could you help us here?"
Exactly.
And so it's the same sort of skills about doing not so much damage to the audio and getting rid of the noise so you can find the signal.
I want to do spy stuff. You do any spy
I did some work for the Defense Department.
No joke.
Yeah, the context was somebody was trying to extort money in an arms deal. and the government agent was wearing a wire, and you know, Chongor put the lav on perfectly here. This agent did not put the lav on properly. And there was all kinds of noise, and I spent about 3 days, you know, saving our government from, anyway. And but I got my tax dollars back because the invoice was awesome.
There you go.
You got my tax dollars.
Thank you.
Well, we have only one issue.
What's that?
Which is, one is a travel question, which is how often do you get to LA?
Well, I'm there at least twice a year, if not 3 times a year.
So the second would be a scheduling thing, because the next time you come, you have to come do part 2 on the show. We are
Please.
nowhere
Absolutely.
near done. Nowhere near done.
I would love to do that.
We'd love to have you.
Thank you guys for coming out here.
What a pleasure.
We've
really
been looking
great to
forward to
host
this for 3 years.
What a pleasure. It's, you guys not only made it possible, but everything that we've always sort of believed about the company from long distance, for the people we know, has just been absolutely amplified by hanging and spending time. It is a smart, cool place.
You know, remember, a long time ago, we were at one of Maureen Droney's NARIS producer engineer wing things, and the founder and owner stopped by to chat, and we fell in love with the company all over again at that point.
It happened twice, actually. I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember this. We interviewed once from the producer and engineer wing Grammy party, and we had him on, but that was brief. And I think the last year, you ended up in the corner with him.
Yeah,
and you guys looked like you were just sort of speed date. You were
he's
just hung.
He's a smart man.
Yeah, Mark is awesome.
Mark is awesome. The employees are awesome. And so, Dave, wrap us up, but we're not done with you. We just want you to know, in a good way.
Okay.
You'll enjoy it. Dave, take us home, man.
Wow, you know, I had so much fun and was so engaged in everything Jonathan had to say, I forgot to think about something to wrap up. I'll say this. Herb has taught me that there's more to life than mixing, and there's more to audio than mixing, and those were 2 concepts that I resisted and violently disagreed with Herb on. But it turns out he was, as always, right, and I think mastering is a lot sexier now than it used to be, and I think that the tools, like Jonathan was a very early adopter of the digital world, very early, and had some first in his career. And take a serious look at mastering.
Can I chime in on?
Please help me.
So, in wrapping up, let me just say my experience as kind of the non-audio person, in terms of mastering being sexy. We get to speak to a ton of people that sit to Dave and I's left every week, and they are all so smart. And amongst the smartest guys are the mastering folks. And they also have the broadest perspective. Their intellectual approach never surpasses the way they feel about the things they master, because they master so many different things that they have to be in touch with that as well, too.
Well said.
And they always support dealing with new technology and how to utilize that to make your craftsmanship better. That's not true of every genre. And so not only have we seen during the course of Pensado's Place for 5 years this passion in the mastering space, it's also full of really, really brilliant people. And you just heard from one of them.
Absolutely. See you guys.
See you guys. Peace.